Hello, so we are ready to move on to the tablet version of the header, which is actually kind of more straightforward than the mobile version because we have just kind of we don't have any overlapping. We just have like a two-column thing, and then the slogan spans those two columns. So the trick is kind of going to be to undo some of the stuff that we did for the mobile. So I am down here in my tablet media query. I've created a new section here for the header. We are going to turn our header grid, into a two-column, two-row layout. So let's look at what we did up here for the header. Display grid, grid template columns, grid template rows. Normally to achieve this layout, we wouldn't even have to explicitly set the rows. But because we did it up here, we need to kind of just undo the three-row layout. So down here in our media query, we are going to do grid template columns, 1FR to create our two columns, and they do look like they're roughly equal width. So we'll just go with FRs, and then grid template rows. So whereas in the previous layout we had 3 rows, here we just need 2. So that's why we're declaring this property, just to undo what we did before. However, we don't need to say exactly how big the rows need to be. We're just going to let them be as big as the content. So we'll just do auto for this. So we're saying we want 2 rows, and those rows should be as tall as they need to be for the content. Okay, so let's see. The other thing I know that we need to do before we look at this is make the slogan span 2 columns. So let's go ahead and do that. Slogan grid column span 2. Alright, let's see what that looks like. Go ahead and refresh. And, oh, okay, so we need to, good, we got our 2-column thing, and the slogan is spanning those 2 columns, but we need to undo all the stuff we did to make that other stuff overlap. So let's look at that one more time. We did explicit grid rows and grid columns on the hero and the logo. So let's try, if we can, let's just select both of those, hero and logo, and we'll say grid column auto and grid row auto to let them just automatically line up in the grid as they normally would. And voila, there we go. Cool. So let's look at this one more time. Alright, so 2 obvious things here. One, this hero image is supposed to be a circle, and it is fully opaque now. So we can remove that opacity. Opacity 1, and we can make a circle with the border radius property. Border radius of 50% will make it a circle, except it won't because our image is rectangular. And to make it a circle, it needs to be a square image, otherwise it's going to be an oval. So there are some ways that we might do this with CSS, some like maybe complicated CSS with, I don't know, maybe that aspect ratio hack that we use for the video, and I don't even know. But by far the easier route is just going to be to create a square image, to actually open this image up and crop it so that it's square, which I've actually already done. So I have here a square version of the image, ship network square. The problem is we don't want it to be square with the mobile layout. We want a rectangular image here. We want a square image here. And there's a way to do this that we haven't really addressed before. You could do it with, well, there's a couple ways you could do it, but the way that we're going to do it is to use the picture element. And I'm just going to pull up the code that I've already created for this, and this is what it looks like. So instead of just having the image in here, there's the ship network image. We put, we have two images inside a picture element. And so this is what you would do if you're in a situation where you're not just trying to swap out like, you're not trying to swap out like different sizes, like different resolutions of the same image. Because there's a different way to do that, like that would be good for speed optimization, where you just have saved like a small, a medium, and a large version of the same image. They're all the same aspect ratio, but they're just like scaled differently, and they have different file sizes. So there's a different way of writing the code in order to do that. But for this, what we're actually doing is what we call art direction. So when we actually want to have a completely different image, maybe because of we're using different crops of an image, or it could be two different images entirely, or different one's landscape and one's portrait, for different layouts. Anytime you want to swap out the image with actually a totally different file that's not just a different not just a different resolution of the same image, this is what you would do. So the picture element holds any number of other image elements, and we actually use this source element. So we use any number of source elements, and then this last one, this image, is like kind of like the fallback. So like if none of the other ones work, or if the browser, if like it's an older browser that doesn't know how to read the picture element, then it will just fall back to the image element. So you can see here we have this media attribute that looks a lot like a media query. And so what this is saying is that this image is going to kick in at 700 pixels. So at a minimum width of 700 pixels and above, we're going to use this square version of the image. And anything less than that, we're going to use the fallback one. My wife's calling me, so I'm going to have to cut this video, and I'll pick it up in a minute. Okay, so I am going to just copy and paste this code into my HTML, replacing the hero image with this picture element. So the class hero that we had before on this image, I'm now putting that on the picture element here. So hopefully that will prevent any issues with the layout that we had before for the mobiles, but we'll need to check that and just make sure that everything's still working. Okay, so yeah, let's just see what happens here. Boop. right. Okay. So we have our square image. That's working. We lost our border radius. So let's come back to that. But first, let's just check our mobile layout and make sure that this is still working. And it is. So you can see on mobile we use the rectangle version of the image, and then that swaps to the square version of the image for tablet. All right, that's pretty cool. So let's try to get our border radius working now. So I think probably we need to apply this to the image directly now, because since this hero class is now the picture element instead of the image element, let's select hero image and put the border radius on that. Okay, cool. So lastly, we just want to get this image, maybe give it a little more space, and get it centered vertically. So let's add some padding to the hero. I made it a little too small, I think. So let's just give the padding on the oops, ew. Let's just give the padding on the left and right, and 0 on the top and bottom. Okay, and then to center this vertically, we can use these built-in properties that we have. Since this is a grid item, we can just say align self center, and that will center this one vertically, boom, like that. All right, so there we go. That's the tablet layout. Pretty easy. So it wasn't pretty easy. I mean, this is totally new stuff, but as far as getting the 2-column thing, it's pretty straightforward. So next we will tackle the desktop.